Let's preview tonight's Spurs Mavericks game. What should the Spurs focus on to close out the season? Let's talk about you, the Locked On Spurs fan.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, this is Hot Rod.
And I'm RC from the Cybertron Spurs.
And you're listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs, the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back. Hope everybody having a great day. And we always thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Ken's 5 Plus app, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. Pick a platform. We are there every day. You guys are the everydayers. Hey, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Hey, what are we talking about today? Well, we're going to be looking at tonight's Spurs Mavericks game in San Antonio. They're back from Austin, so we'll talk about that game. Just a quick preview. Then bring in our guest, Rudy Campos, of Sweep the League. We're going to be discussing what should the Spurs focus on to close out the season, and then address some of your comments you're leaving on the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. But first, let's preview tonight's Spurs Mavericks game. Spurs come into tonight's game 15-53. Dallas comes in at 39-29. San Antonio is down in the regular season series 0-3. Hopefully the Spurs will get one, not get swept by Dallas. So let's rewind the clock. The Spurs are coming off a win over the Brooklyn Nets in Austin, 122-115. Wemby just had a monster game, near quad double, 33 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists. Just did it all. Zach Collins had 6 points. Devin Vassell had 25 points in the win. Keldon Johnson had 24. Sohan chipped in with 9 rebounds, and Trey Jones had 11 points and 7 assists. Injury front news, nothing really different. Bassey's still out. Sissoko, Duke Jr., Barlow, and Boye will be out. They'll be in the G League. And speaking of the G League, the Spurs have assigned Sidi Sissoko and Barlow to the Austin Spurs, so they will not be available tonight. For those that are on uniform watch, the Spurs will be wearing their City Edition jerseys. All right, so let's preview tonight's game, Spurs Mavericks. As always, we start with the opposition, Dallas. So, you know how they say history is it's a teacher, it's a learning tool. Well, that's good for Dallas, not good for San Antonio. All right, so check this out. So, the Mavericks have won 4 of the last 5 games against the Spurs, 9 of the last 10 games against the Spurs, and 15 of the last 20 against San Antonio. You see where we're going with this. Dallas has just been dominating the series of late. Hopefully the Spurs can snap that. Just look at this season, 0-3 versus Dallas. So the Spurs need to get a W against the in-state rival. So keep an eye on that streak going for Dallas. Also, and speaking of recent history, the Mavericks have won 6 straight and 7 of the last 8 games in San Antonio. Yeah. Home cooking, not for the Spurs against Dallas. Dallas has been really feasting on the Spurs out at the Frost in San Antonio. Again, it's another trend to keep an eye on tonight's game, Spurs Mavericks. Now, Luka Doncic, look, he's just wrecking shop. It doesn't matter if it's silver and black jersey, Rockets jersey, Boston, it doesn't matter. He's just playing out of his mind. All right. So, how's he doing against San Antonio in his career? Well, keep an eye on Luka. Obviously, that is a big key for that for San Antonio. That is 19 career games versus the Spurs. Doncic is averaging 29.9 points per game, 8.7 rebounds, 9.2 assists. Cut off that head of the snake if you're the Spurs. D up on him, looking at you, Sohan. Be that irritant. Get up on him. Try to get him flustered. Do what you can to slow him down. He's a one-man wrecking crew for the Mavericks against San Antonio. All right, now let's talk about the Spurs. Good news is the Spurs are doing really good on the board. They have out-rebounded their last 5 opponents. So they're really crashing the boards, getting those opportunities. But the last thing to keep an eye on is the fact that the Spurs are making 3-pointers. And by when I say that is they've been making more 3-point shots in 10 straight games over their opponents. So their shots are falling. The 3-point shots are falling. It's just turnovers have been a really big factor why the Spurs have been losing of late. But yeah, so if you wanted some positive news heading into tonight's game, yeah, they're definitely out rebounding the opposition and they're making more threes than the opposition. Hopefully that will factor well into hopefully crossing fingers, the Spurs win tonight out in Dallas. All right. When we get back, we're going to bring in our guest, Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. We're going to be discussing what should the Spurs focus on in the last few remaining games of the season, and then address some of your comments that you have left at the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. Hey, I want to talk about Stitch Fix. Look, you want that instant confidence boost that you get when you get an outfit that you really like and it makes you look really good. Well, that's what you get with Stitch Fix. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, your size, your budget. They do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. Get that easy upgrade to your wardrobe. Use a professional stylist that'll help you find a new on-trend favorite for your wardrobe that will work for you. You just give them their size, your style, again, your budget preferences. You get the boxes when you want, how you want, no subscription required. And they send those 5 just for you pieces, outfit recommendations, pro styling advice, the works. You get everything. You keep what works, you send back the rest. Your stylist also sends you just the right pieces for you. The fit is on point. It's like they got style ESP. I don't know how to describe it. But they just do. They get it. They do it all the time. Look, Stitch Fix makes everything easy. If you don't like to shop, they'll save you the time and effort. You get outfits that make you look good, make you feel really good. And if you don't love something, you just send it back. Shipping and returns and exchanges are always free. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/lockedon. That's stitchfix.com/lockedon. stitchfix.com/lockedon. Hey, I want to talk about Muslinger's drive-thru coffee, everybody. Go there if you're in San Antonio right now. 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive, 281 to 1604 area. They have it all. First of all, they're open every day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So there's no excuse for you to not go get a delicious drink such as a latte, a cold brew. Their signature drink called the Muslinger. What about caffeine-charged drinks like the Red Bull-infused Lightning Bolt series? What do you want to take it easy? Yes, they have dairy alternatives. They have non-caffeinated drinks like the OG OJ. They have it all only at Muslinger's drive-thru coffee. Big menu. They got mini donuts. They got a wide variety of drinks, and they're always turning out new concoctions almost daily, weekly. How you can keep them up and seeing what's going on with them is by following them on X at Muslinger SATX. Do that right now. X, Threads, Facebook, TikTok, they're everywhere at Muslinger SATX, all one word. Look, they're a proud local sponsor of Locked On Spurs and a proud community member of San Antonio. They love serving you guys in San Antonio. All the delicious drinks every single day. Go there right now, San Antonio. They got wonderful reviews. They're very customer friendly, and that staff, really awesome. Awesome to deal with. So go to Muslinger's drive-thru coffee, 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive, 281 to 1604 area. Open every single day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Go there right now, San Antonio, because life is too short for bland coffee.
This is Emily Swallow, and you are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. He is on X at Sweep the League, and got the 49. No, the Giants hat today.
Yeah, Giants hat. Not the Niners, man. Not the Niners.
The
Don't get me in trouble here.
Because you're a Falcons fan, right?
Yeah, because of the people know Tommy Nobis is a famous. He's Mr. Falcon himself. He went to Thomas Jefferson High School, where a lot of my family did. So my dad was a big fan of Tommy Nobis, and that's the reason why University of Texas as well. So reason why I became a Falcons fan because of my dad too.
Does it feel to be a Falcons fan in Cowboys country? You must be loving this right now, knowing how much they're just crying every day, all the fans.
I don't have room to talk because the Cowboys have Super Bowl wins and Falcons have Super Bowl humility, I guess is what you can say. So, but it's fun. I give Cowboy fans a lot of crap left and right when I get the opportunity.
Bet you do. I bet you do. He is with a Sweep the League. You can find that show on YouTube, part of the I believe the Alamo Cities Podcast Network. There we go, on YouTube, and we'll talk about that in just a few seconds. But Rudy, there's not that many games left in the season, thankfully, I guess. But the season is winding down. There's less than 20 games to go, and it's time to start, I guess, planning ahead. But in planning ahead, that being the offseason, there's still work to be done. What do you think this team should be focusing on to wrap up the season? In these last few games, what do you think it could be the message to get across to this roster before the season gets over?
So the biggest thing for me is, people maybe think, well, you want to get more Wemby involvement. You want to see his improvement to go. But I'm going to take the Wemby factor out of the San Antonio Spurs equation. And that is to see who is going to still be here at the end of the season, going into the next season.
Yeah.
You've heard rumors and speculations about Keldon Johnson being on the trading block, him possibly not being here, them cutting guys like a Devontae Graham, maybe even a Chetty Osman not even being here as well. Are some of these young guys? You've seen the explosiveness of Blake Wesley. Will he be sticking around? Will Trey Jones be the point guard next year? There's so many questions, which I think at the end of the season, Jeff, is where the team needs to focus on, is answering those questions. Who do we feel is going to be with the Spurs going into the next season? Again, you've got a major offseason coming up in this season and next season. So these questions got to be answered this offseason. The biggest thing for the San Antonio Spurs to do is figure out which players are going to stick around, which players are not.
It's like an audition right now, right? It's basically what it is. These last few games are just an audition for the fringe players. You can pretty much pencil in Devin moving forward. With the roster. Would you think Sohan could be on the bubble too? Do you think if there's a deal out there that they may, and if they want Sohan to be okay, that's cool. Yeah, take Sohan.
Honestly, I've said it a million times. Every player is on the table, and you've got to take a call just on every player. I get that Sohan's been up and down all season. You've got a lot of people that love his game. You got a lot of people say, hey, he's still developing. He's still a young player. You got to give him time to develop, which I understand as well. But if he doesn't fit the scheme of what they're trying to do, then you're taking calls on him. If you've got an opportunity to move him for a decent return, you've kind of got to do it. I mean, to be honest, the season shows that the Spurs are not where they need to be. Even with Wemby, they're not need to be. So there's no guarantees that you're going to see this exact same squad. The only guy who I would maybe say is kind of safe is Devin. But even at that, if I'm getting a massive haul in for Devin, in my opinion, that's something worth looking at. You've got to take the call and you've got to actually look at it and see, will it benefit the Spurs?
Yeah, and I get that, because the rebuild is not over. Yes, they got Wemby, but it's not over, not by a long shot. And dare I say another 2 more years of this? I mean, obviously improved record each year, but I'm talking about playoff worthy team. Probably 2-3 years away from that.
Yeah, so like I think it's always going to be the 2025 offseason. After that offseason, if everything goes according to plan and what they're trying to build, I think that 2025, 2026 season is when you start to see them really, really compete. And I'm talking probably you're in that 4th, 5th, 6th range of playoff possibilities. I think they're going to have a lot of cap space. You have a lot of big time free agents in that 2025 offseason. So to attract the likes of, and I'm just throwing guys out there like of a Brandon Ingram coming up and all these guys, these are players that you want to build around with Wemby. So again, I think that 2025, 2026 is the competition year. That's where we're going to see that next step for the San Antonio Spurs, where it's playing game, possibly playoffs already. But yeah, I think another year of this. Let's go into tell the future here. I say if they have a decent offseason I'm putting them at around 28 wins, 29 wins.
Okay. All right.
So improvement.
Technically improvement. You're right. Okay. So for me, what I'd like this team to focus on, and I know fans are going to read between the lines, but they got nothing to play for other than the future. That's it. There's no playoffs this year. There's no play-in this year. Nothing. What about upping them lottery odds? I know it's not the biggest draft and, full of rich talent that'll turn your franchise around like Wemby's doing right now. But, why not position themselves to look? We know they're going to land in the top 10. There's no doubt about that. But hey, what if they can up their odds and get closer to 1? Push that. Land 4, 5, 3. I don't know, and then parlay that into a deal, or draft a guy and get him developed. Add him to the rebuild. So for me, I like to then focus on the future, yes, but the short-term future, and that's draft lottery. That's the T word, though. They would have to kind of like, no, man, we turned the ball over 30 times today. How dare us? But I wouldn't mind seeing the Spurs focus on the draft lottery and upping those lottery odds. Rudy, your thoughts?
We're
there already. We're there.
You're a lottery team already. I mean, you're going to be in the lottery this year. So I guess, I'm going to throw the word out there. If you're going to tank to try to get another high draft pick, It's okay. I mean, it's not a bad thing. Again, this is not a draft where you're wanting that first, second, third, fourth pick. It's kind of where if you get one or two, you're going to get probably the same player at 5 and 6. So it's kind of a draft where you're kind of getting the needs filled here and there. It's no superstar out there, no Wemby, not a Cooper Flag coming out next season, but you kind of position yourself to where you said, get a high lottery pick. If you got one or two, always consider trading down. And I've talked to a lot of draft experts on this, and they've all said the same thing. If you're at 1, trade down and try to get some assets in this draft, because you can possibly get the same type of player at 6, 7, 8 that you can at 1, 2, 3. Right. So I'm with you on that, Jeff. If you decide to maybe just tank the season away, get a high pick, use that as collateral to maybe even get a veteran. I mean, some of these teams are fringe teams. They're like, you know what? We're not good enough to win, but we're not bad enough to lose. Let's trade our star player. Let us maybe be really bad next season to where when the 2025 draft comes in, we have a good odds to get one of these, these really, really good players.
Yeah, I just see that more of an asset. Like I get all the players are assets and the draft pick they're assets, but when you talk about a big asset to throw on the table, if you're in negotiations with a team, let's just say the Spurs, end up winning the 3rd pick overall. That's still a high pick, and they need that veteran presence, an all-star guard, all-star forward, whatever it may be, or whoever it may be.
Yeah.
Why not talk to Team X and be like, hey, we have some draft picks and we have this year's number 3 overall pick. What say you? And I think if you're a team that's kind of in the middle of the pack right now, that's not going up or not going down, that's like instant rebuild in a second. You're like, wait a minute, we don't have to tank in next year to go for a high pick. Let's just get your 2nd pick right now, or your 3rd or your 4th pick right now, Spurs. And the Spurs would be cool. Let's just see what you got, because they can afford it. So as much as some Spurs fans don't want to tank and they don't think that's the right thing to do, and you always go for wins. Yeah. But winning long term, or short long term in this case, could pan out for the Spurs for the long-term development of the franchise, Rudy.
It's not so much that it's a tank, and I think a lot of fans get the T word confused with rebuild, and even rebuild sounds terrible. It's not necessarily a rebuild. The biggest reason why people are so concerned, Jeff, is they explain it all the time, and they're always crying about it on Twitter and everywhere else on social media, is the fact that Wemby's going to leave. They're worried about Wemby leaving. Wemby understood coming to San Antonio that it's not an overnight build. He understands that the Spurs have him for 8 years, technically. I mean, they really can't he's not going to just walk away. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's not going to come in thinking we're going to be a playoff team instantly. Don't get me wrong. He wants to win, but it's a process. It's going to take time. So I think more than anything, tanking's not a bad thing in sports. I mean, when you're bad, you're bad. And if you're really bad, you're really bad. They have so many questions in this offseason. Do you keep Keldon? He's a good 6-man off the bench. I'll be honest. He's a lot better person coming off the bench than he is a starter, in my opinion. But then who do you put in that starting position? I mean, you've seen the struggles of Malachi. You've seen the struggles of Champagny. I mean, you've seen so many struggles. So you've got to get a guy to come in to fill that role. But at what cost? It's going to cost you Devin. It's going to cost you maybe Jeremy. It's going to cost you somebody. So this is the kind of chess match that the Spurs are playing right now. It's almost like confusing, like when you first play Chinese checkers. It's confusing. You don't understand it. But once you get the hang of it, then you start to see everything fall into play. Right now, nobody understands what the organization is doing. Let it go into the offseason, see what happens. But you're making great points on this. It's a tough world, because you don't want to tank, but you kind of have to kind of better yourself to make better deals in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. He is Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Follow him on X at Sweep the League. When we get back, we're going to be discussing you guys. What are y'all talking about at the Locked On Spurs YouTube page? We've got a couple comments on deck. That's next right here on Locked On Spurs. I want to talk about LinkedIn Talent Solutions. Look, if you're hiring and you're a small business and you want to find quality professionals for the right role for your business, we'll look no further than LinkedIn Jobs. That's why you have to check it out. LinkedIn Jobs has all the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Look, it's not just another job board. I get that. No, don't think that right away. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all the work for you, all while making the process easier and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a candidate that's qualified within 24 hours. Did you know LinkedIn Jobs also knows that, well, you as a small business may be wearing so many hats, and you might not have the time or the resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly trying to find ways to make the process easier. They even have a new feature. It helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. You should too. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with the projected number 1 draft pick, Rudy Campos.
Mm-hmm.
Rudy, you must be flying under the radar. I don't see you on any mock board right now.
Yeah, you know what, Jeff, sad story is, I didn't do my pro day. So people are basically making me, fall off the draft everywhere. But nonetheless, if I do get drafted, I guarantee they will get the best water boy the NBA has ever seen.
So, that's the difference. The players got to stay hydrated, right? They got to keep those energy levels up, So to me, that's very important.
It's the most important job on an NBA team right there, is to keep them hydrated.
When he's not hydrating NBA players, you can find Rudy on X at Sweep the League and on his show, Sweep the League. And we'll talk about that in just a few seconds. But Rudy, as we always do, we look at some fan comments. Look, you guys are leaving tons of comments. We can't keep up. We wish we could read them all, but we cannot. So we're going to pick 2. So we're going to pick one that kind of jives, with what we've been talking about in the first segment. And we'll start off with this one. So we're talking about the rebuild, Rudy, where we're talking about, Wemby and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Well, we have a comment from Marquise Vegan. He says, when the Spurs become contenders, I am sure players will want to join Wemby through free agency. Thank you, Marquise, for that comment. My first reaction to that, Rudy, was we've been down this road with Tim freaking Duncan, and not one big name free agent came to San Antonio outside of LaMarcus Aldridge, but TD was already on the back end of his career. Do you think Wemby's going to buck that trend now that he's established himself as perhaps the face of the league as soon as probably next year?
Wow. Okay, that's kind of a double-edged sword there, because I think players are saying that they want to play with Wemby, and I get it. You want to play with the.
Well, we've heard this before, haven't we? Heard this.
Tim
Duncan. Oh, I want to play with TD, and they never come.
But with the Duncan era, Jeff, can it be safe to say that more than likely the Spurs never pursued these free agents because they already had the team, the core built? So it was like, if you were to bring one of these top guys in, you could probably mess up that core, mess up, the locker room. And it's kind of, look, let's be honest, Richard Jefferson type thing. He was a very good player, but he just didn't work out with the Spurs. So you've seen the Spurs kind of bring in a player here and there that, may have fallen off from grace or may have had better times, but we don't know if they really would pursue him. But in Wemby's case, you hear a lot of players saying they want to play with him. You heard Dame Lillard was one of the guys said he wouldn't mind playing for San Antonio. Trae Young is linked to playing with Wemby, but it goes back to the other part of the sword, and that's Popovich. Not many players, especially superstars, want to play under Popovich. They always say, I'd love to play for Pop, but it's never in an NBA scenario. It's always for the Olympics. It's always for this. I love Pop as a coach. Pop is one of the greatest of all times. But you never hear them say, I want to play in San Antonio. Yep. So, again, it's a double-edged sword. People want to play with Wemby, but do they want to play for Pop? That's the part, I think. So if Pop ends up retiring or something here soon, you may see a little bit of an influx of players coming to San Antonio.
Yeah, I'm going to project that Wemby will buck the trend. I think not only is he new on scene, but there's going to be sooner than later Popovich's retirement. That may change things if they bring in a younger coach. a new philosophy, a new coaching approach. I mean, look, we heard it before. LaMarcus Aldridge himself spoke on All the Smoke podcast, saying that one of the reasons why Kawhi left was because he didn't like Pop's way of coaching, reading books and whatnot. He just wanted to hoop. Maybe, and that's a megastar in the NBA.
Yeah.
So maybe that might change things down the road. But until then, I think Wemby will at least get that ball going.
Mm-hmm.
I think he can be a recruiter. We've seen megastars recruit other players to come to just look at Kevin Durant and the Warriors. We all saw that. So I think he'll buck that trend. So, but maybe he'll be in that free agency class you're talking about in 2025. So could be key right there. All right. The next question or comment comes from Greg Neal, Rudy.
Mm-hmm.
He comments, this is going to be a good one for you. Devin Vassell is the only other untouchable Spur. I've heard there are some impact players overseas ready to be drafted, or Edie from Purdue will allow Wemby to guard the perimeter more. All right, so there's like two comments in one comment. So the first one is Devin Vassell is untouchable. Yeah. Then there's overseas talent. Yeah. And then Edie from Purdue. Now, we had Jack Thompson on yesterday, formerly with San Antonio Sports Star. He says that Edie was just built in the wrong era. If this was 90s and this was 80s, he would have been a projected number 1 pick. But because he can't shoot a 3 or really has that kind of a perimeter game, that's going to hurt him. But, Twin Towers all over again in San Antonio. You got one that can roam and create, Wemby, and one who's a plotter in the middle that can do destruction underneath the paint. Edie, what do you think? What do you think about Edie, overseas talent, and untouchable Vassell?
All right, let me tackle the easy one first here. Okay. Jack Thompson's right. Zach Edey was built in the wrong era of basketball. Yeah. So if you're talking 80s and 90s, early 90s basketball, Zach Edey would have been a great prospect, probably number 1 in the overall when it comes to draft. But because he's about 20 years too late, it's going to be tough for him to be drafted. I've always had Zach Edey as a second-round pick. Definitely not a first. Now, if he has a fantastic tournament run with Purdue this year, he can squeeze into the first round, but it'd be late first round. Nothing that I see him going projected early. A great prospect, but very slow. Just not any type of NBA. He's not on everybody's NBA's list, put it that way. So Zach Edey definitely is not one that the Spurs would get in the first round. Going back to Devin Vassell, you're asking the wrong guy. You're asking the wrong guy because
he's saying untouchable.
I'm the same guy who's going to piss off your YouTube people and say I was the same guy that said if you called me about Tim Duncan, I would take the call just to take the call, not to make the move. Take the call. But Devin Vassell he's the most valuable asset outside of Wemby. So to say he's untouchable is wrong. He can be traded at any moment because, again, if you get, a couple of picks and a couple of young kids or even one guy that's a star on another team, they're going to probably want Devin. So if you want to get better right away, you've got to make that move. And it goes back to this, Jeff. You see what you have with Devin and Wemby, but if you have the opportunity to get a Trey and Wemby, that kind of outweighs a little bit more than what Devin and Wemby has done so far. So you're already getting a star with Trae Young, all-star at that. You've got to kind of consider that move. But no, he's not untouchable. He can be had just about for any decent, haul from another team. Last part about international. Yes, there's a lot of international players out there. One guy in 2025 who I have circled, and I've told you on your show for everybody here, is Hugo Gonzalez out of Real Madrid. He's 18 years old. He's a small forward. Just look him up. Go to the YouTube channels and look up Hugo Gonzalez. This kid is going to be great. I imagine the Spurs having Atlanta's lottery pick, and then if they have their first-round pick, Hugo's got to be one of the guys that they're instant guy that's going to make an instant impact. So definitely look at Hugo Gonzalez internationally.
Hugo Gonzalez. But going back to Edie, though, you taking him? Would you take a flyer on him?
Second round, yeah.
Do you think he'll pan out, or he's G League bound though?
Edie will probably not. It's hard to say. He probably will not pan out. Just because of He's a backup. He'll be a backup.
Yeah.
At best, he's a backup.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking maybe the sense of a slower Francisco Elson type player. Just someone that's going to be a backup, kind of just spell minutes here and there. Nothing that's going to give you anything big.
You think his ceiling is Jakob Poeltl?
No. I think Jakob has a better career. Only because Jakob is more his pick and roll game is elite. Jakob is probably the best pick and roll guy in the game today. Zach Edey doesn't really have those same instincts. He's kind of a nuisance around the basket in a good way. But again, you're not going to run. You're going to have to run plays for Zach in order for him to be effective, and that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And look, the Spurs have the luxury. They got a bunch of picks in the upcoming drafts. I mean, they could take a flyer on a project player, as we saw earlier in the golden years of the Spurs, where they would just draft a stash. That's all it was in the draft. Remember, Rudy? Draft a stash.
Yeah.
That's all it was. And look, although they're not there yet, but with the amount of picks they got, perhaps they could afford 1, 2 maybe to develop. But as far as Vassell untouchable, man, oof. I'm not there yet.
No.
But if I pick up the phone about Vassell, my first reaction is you better be making a damn good deal. It better be a really, really good deal, because I don't want to part with this guy for nothing less than top dollar. But
what do you consider top dollar for Devin? I mean,
if they're gonna get like an instant impact veteran player. Look, I know Vassell's a veteran. I get that. He is technically by definition a veteran. But if you can pair Wemby with an elite point guard, if you can pair Wemby with an elite power forward.
So let me throw this at you, because the rumors have it that Brandon Ingram is very unhappy in New Orleans. So
yes, I'm done. Yep, throw him in. Well, I mean, again, it's no knock on Vassell, because it'll take an all-star like Brandon Ingram for me to even listen.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, can you imagine Wemby and Ingram together in the court? I mean, that's
Twin
Towers-ish one more time.
What if you bring, the guy again? What if you bring back a DeMar DeRozan? Does he fit better than Devin Vassell?
No, I think Devin Vassell fits better.
So in what way does Devin fit better? I mean, you get a better.
I think the chemistry between him and Wemby is really taking off right now.
Okay.
And if Wemby likes playing with Vassell versus starting all over again with DeMar DeRozan, I think you go with what Wemby wants. And then also too, I think Vassell likes playing with Wemby as well. So they've really got things cooking right now. I mean, it's too bad it's the end of the season, but at least, hey, there's something to be working on towards the future.
I'm gonna just throw this out here on your show, but everybody needs to keep a close eye on Phoenix this offseason. Okay. Because I have a feeling there's going to be a Kevin Durant rumbling about wanting out.
Ooh.
So if that happens, you may want to see a little bit. You may want to look into that a little bit. But I have a feeling that might be a rumbling.
Look at that. See, and for all those type of gems, that's where you got to go check out Sweep the League. Rudy, tell us about Sweep, where they can find it, how they can listen, all that good stuff.
Yeah, Sweep the League, man. We're part of the Alamo City Podcast Network. We had spring break last week, so we were kind of off. We had some stuff going on, but with all the NFL talk that's been coming out, a lot of the NBA getting going, March Madness and stuff, you can find us from 2 to 3:30, which that's kind of fringe now because we may be going 3 to 4:30 now. So we're going to let everybody know about the time. But for right now, it's 2 to 3:30 on the Alamo City Podcast Network. Just search for it on YouTube. You'll find us there. It's myself, Gio, Derek Gervin, a few other guys there as well. So we talk everything. And, I got to get Jeff back on the horn over there for sure.
By the way, everybody, we did invite Rudy last week to join Locked On Spurs, but he was busy. He was very busy at work.
I had to fill in for you because apparently you didn't want to go to your autograph session, so I had to go sign Jeff Garcia merch.
Yeah, it was just like a stamp.
Yeah.
But hey, again, check out Rudy on X at Sweep the League and check out his show Sweep the League as well. Right there on your screen. Just go ahead and follow him right now. Hey, we'll be back tomorrow talking all things Spurs. I think we have Mike Jimenez coming back on. So we'll be able to cook him for his takes. By the way, did you hear that he wants to back out of signing that I apologize Sohan form? That he wants to erase his name off now.
I haven't heard that. I just kind of saw recently about his show earlier, so I haven't heard about that. If he backs out, that's kind of terrible. That's terrible.
That's very terrible, and that's why he's gonna come on. Hopefully, we can grill him about what's he thinking about going back on his word after he signed that apology form for Sohan. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every single day. YouTube, iTunes, Ken's 5 Plus app, Spotify. Yeah, we're everywhere. So subscribe where you can. Locked On Sports Today, 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Go subscribe right now. 24/7 streaming sports on YouTube, only at Locked On Sports Today. So go check it out. So for Rudy, the projected #1 draft pick, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock in this episode of Locked On Spurs.